So we're just waiting for some attendees to drop in. All right, so we might get started. Welcome everyone. I'm going to start by today acknowledging the traditional owners of all the lands on which we live and work. And for me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So, hi everyone. This is the final in our series of market webinars for Spark Connect at Screen Forever. I'm Jessica Giaco, Industry Programs Manager at Screen Producers Australia. This series has really been an opportunity to hear from some of the key international executives who will be attending Screen Forever this year as a way to find out what projects they are looking for, as well as some thoughts on the state of the industry from their part of the world. And I'm absolutely thrilled that this evening we have Noel Hedges joining us. Noel is the Executive Vice President, International TV Acquisitions and Co-Productions at Lionsgate. Did I get that right, Noel?
Yes, that will do.
Excellent, excellent. And look, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Jess, why don't we kick it off by, could you just tell us a little bit about your role and at Lionsgate?
Yeah, so as the international EVP of sort of acquisitions, I'm really responsible for sourcing those opportunities from outside of the company. So obviously Lionsgate is a large US studio is developing and sort of creating a lot of its own material and its own programming and has a big long history both in film and television. And I think like any company, not everything that's good that's valuable is what we're going to create. So we very much like to keep our eyes and ears open to what the world is doing, finding interesting writers, interesting producers, interesting projects that Lionsgate can use its size and its heft and its position in the market to really assist. So I talk to producers from all over the world. Um, Looking for those projects, hearing about projects that they've got in development that we could maybe get involved earlier on to maybe co-develop or maybe simply deficit finance to get into production and then distribute. Um, so it's really running the gamut, but really being the eyes and the ears of that, it's of the sort of the international sort of independent third party market so that we can find opportunities.
Great. So, and whereabouts are you based?
So I'm in London,
Mhm.
um, and I was formerly with Entertainment One, and Entertainment One was bought by Lionsgate just over a year ago. So I'm based in London. The majority of the business is in LA, but we have a sizable presence in the UK. A large part of our European sales team are here. We have a very large UK theatrical distribution business here. So it's a fairly sized office, fairly big size office. But the mothership is in Los Angeles.
Okay. And being under the umbrella of such a large mothership, as you said, Lionsgate, um,
Mhm.
what does that mean for how your view on the industry is currently? Like last week we heard from New and Connect about the state of sort of Josephine's perspective. I was wondering this week, what are you seeing and what are you thinking about how things are traveling lately?
Um, Yeah, okay, broadly speaking, things are slow at the moment, and they have been for a good year and a bit, I think. Um, I think a lot of what's been going on in the world, economically, politically, um, perhaps the first time that I've ever experienced it, we've had these sort of ups and downs in the world before. But somehow the market that we're in, this distribution business, this international business, has somehow been protected from it. And, people have, ironically, in many times, in times of crisis, distribution as a business has done very well because people have reverted to buying tape. But I think this is different. I think we're seeing much, seismic shift in the market. Um, and it's made everybody slow down. Now, I
Mm.
don't think that is slowing down to inertia and standing still. I would say there is still very much an active interest. There is a market, there is people buying, but they're being much more cautious. They're being much more careful of what they buy. And equally, I think on sort of after that, I would say the where it affects us the most is in particular in the US market.
Mm.
The US market is going through a huge change with recalibration of what the streaming companies are doing, how they're approaching um, original programming. That kind of race to grab original programming from everybody has sort of stopped. So, and a lot of corporate changing, which I think because the US market, I think has let's say slowed down. Let's just say slow down for the sake. I don't want to say stopped. It clearly hasn't stopped, but it's slowed down. And certainly it's slowed down very much so when it comes to international programming, whether it's the UK, Australia, or wherever, Canada, or wherever. Um, that has a profound impact on how international programs are then financed and put together. So it's been a slow and cautious time, I would say, and I'd say, and we'll get onto it later, but yeah, caution and just a little bit of a slight reserve in the way we're doing things, and maybe a bit more scrutiny over what it is, why do we need it, what's the deal, where do we really think the market is going to take the project. So, yeah, I think that's about sums it up.
Okay, thanks for that. And are you seeing that maybe with this pulling back in the US and this reserve in the US that there is more interest in countries outside? Like I've been noticing an upshift in interest in Australia and working with Australia in terms of the people that I talk to. Um, would you say, and I think it is because of the US pulling back, would you say that that's maybe the case as well, like with in the UK?
Um, I think in the US, do you mean like, do I think because there's been a slowdown in the US that Australia's got more of an opportunity, or do you
Yeah,
think,
and
yeah,
also, but also UK working with other countries, like not necessarily going to the US first, like maybe stepping a bit out.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I think in the US, maybe stepping back a little bit, has necessitated that producers have to start finding ways of working
Mm,
together. I think there's twofold things for producers that are challenging. It's obviously the broadcasters or the buyers, whoever they are, streamers, platforms. Um, they're limited on financing, so they kind of their prices haven't gone up what they're offering, but production costs have gone higher, and so they're faced with real struggles in financing their projects,
mm,
which necessitates sort of collaboration. And then I think we are at that point now where there is a real kind of discussion over how do people bring production costs down because the market can't sustain the budgets, and the international market can't cover it. So there has to be, it all has to happen together. Collaboration, slightly lower budgets, better money from broadcasters and buyers, but sort of so it all kind of it's all has to happen at the same time, really.
yeah, absolutely. And look, to everyone listening, please, you feel free to start putting questions into the Q&A chat box. I can already see one in there, so we'll start getting to those as we progress. We might just move now, Noel, to what you're looking for. So you are coming to Screen Forever in
Mhm.
2.5 months. So maybe first, could you tell us a little bit about your current slate, what's coming up in 2025, and how you work with Australian
Yeah.
producers? Yeah.
Yeah, so the slate is obviously Lionsgate is a prolific company and we have a wide variety of projects. So on the current slate, we have some big US shows, sort of just to signal some of those. So we've got a new iteration of Spartacus, which is a big franchise for us. So we're having Spartacus: The House of Asher coming out soon, which is another Swords and Sandals, blood, guts, fighting, gladiators type project. People love that. We've got a new John Grisham adaptation, an adaptation of his film, of his book, The Rainmaker, which was made into a film a few years ago. And that's been done for USA Network, which is more of a sort of legal drama, legal thriller. Um, We have obviously like returning shows. The Rookie is still going very strong for us on ABC. And then we have big success with Canadian shows like Heartland and Family Law. Um, On the Australian side, I mean, we've had a quite prolific slate on the Australian side. Um, Obviously, at the moment, we're taking out Newsreader Series 3.
Yeah.
We're in the process of taking out Plum, the ABC show Plum, Fake, the Paramount Plus show. But prior to that, we've had things like Upright, Population 11, Prosper, which are all still active in the market. So I really think across the board, it's a very, for everything from big US sort of tent poles to some really good quality international programs as well.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a really strong Australian slate too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a terrific Australian slate. We're really proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is there anything specific going forward that you're looking for out of Australia?
I wouldn't say it's specifically out of Australia, but just generally speaking, I'm just more conscious I'm very conscious of quality. I'm very conscious of projects being potentially returnable at the moment. Um, and whether that's a serialized sort of six-parter or eight-parter or only a four-parter. I think just from a business perspective, it's good to see success returning, and it creates a whole commercial dynamic in itself when things return. So potential to return is quite important for me. I mean, I try not to be too prescriptive when it says what am I actually looking for. I think if I had to lean into any genre, I'd probably be leaning into something more of a crime space or an
Right.
investigation space, if I'm honest with you. I don't think looking at our shows, we haven't had much that's in pure sort of an investigative world. Um, so that might be quite interesting. But I think the one thing for me, it's not just, it's one thing to find that piece that is in that genre, but I've got to see what else is all around it, what the packaging is, like who's the producer,
Yeah, yeah.
who's the broadcaster, and actually more importantly, who's potentially going to be in it and cast in
So,
it.
okay, that's great. So packaging is important. So what do you look for in that packaging? As you just said, sorry, but if
Well,
they're
yeah,
yeah,
it starts obviously with the writer, and the
yeah,
writer and the producer. Um, what has the writer done? And is the producer, have they got the sort of the ability to produce it at the level that we'd all want it to be? Obviously, I rely a lot on the on the broadcaster or local buyer, um, that relation, they're in the same boat as me. They want to know who can this producer deliver the program according to sort of the spec. Um, but that's important. And then when it comes to casting, it's just in this market of slow down and a lot of choice for the buyers, the more power you've got to rise above everything else through having something marketable immediately to say, oh, X person is in it, or it's been directed by this person, and it just rises to the top more. It's still got to be good, obviously. Things don't
yeah.
get bought if they're bad. So sort of, but it just helps in this very sort of it just helps push through the noise and just get out there. So we are conscious of that, and it's one of the things that my sales team always say to me is like, it's good, but who can you say is going to be in it? And that's always a difficult thing for a producer because it's hard to attach people, but sometimes things come to me and they have got stars attached, and immediately it's much easier to value. It's much easier to say, okay, I know we can be a bit more confident here.
Mm, big. So a question here, do you prefer to co-produce projects that are earlier in development or later when it is ready for distribution?
Both really. What do I prefer? Um, I mean, I mean, on a pure business level, the quicker we get a program that's delivered to start selling, the better. So if something's good, is well packaged, is quality, we can definitely get it into production and get it delivered, 12 months later, then that's ideal because everyone can start selling. Um, Often doing it earlier, obviously commercially it can be better, but we can actually use all parts of the business as well at Lionsgate to maybe shape it in a way that might become more than the sum of its parts initially, and actually build it to be something that, sort of bigger than perhaps it was intended in a good way. So there's no preference. We just want to get good projects into the slate, so the quickest way of doing that, the better, really. There isn't a particular preference.
Right. So just another question, probably on from that, from Bridget. At what
Mhm.
stage do you want to see the project? If it is a series, do you require a pilot episode written, or do you want to come in once things are just about to be made? As you just said, you don't really have a preference, but do you need to see a pilot?
It,
Yeah.
For me to really judge something, yes, I want to see a pilot. If I want to, I can read projects at any stage, and I'm very open to reading things at lots of different stages. But for me to really judge a project, I would want to read a script, and I just it might be useful. So I tend, I don't know if everyone else is like this, but I tend to read the script. If you send me a script and a Bible and all that, I tend to read the script first.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to kind of just make sure that script is really the best it could be at the time. Because I then look at the Bible to get more of a sense of, okay, well, where's this going? What's going to happen? But I just immediately it's almost like, I think like a viewer, if I'm going to read the script first and see how engaged I get, sort of from the first few pages. And then if it's something, I'll read more about it and see where it goes and the surrounding kind of material. Um, so yeah, I do prefer a script. That is for sure. But there's nothing to say someone couldn't come to me and say, "Hey, I've got this really great idea, and and I've written a couple of pages. Can you take a look and see what you think? Is it something that you'd be interested in?" I can do that as well. It's just to be really pragmatic. It's just, is there a script? Is it on its way, sort of thing.
So when it comes to Screen Forever, and I'll get back to the questions in a sec. When it comes to Screen Forever, you'll be sitting there in the market. You'll be meeting people who are there to pitch to you for the first time. Clearly, there's not time to read that script. What do you want to see?
In
Yeah,
the
thank you.
meetings or in sort of
In the meetings,
in the
yeah.
meeting? I mean, a succinct pitch of what the project is. I think if we're only doing short meetings, sort of, I think try and be as clear and defined in your idea as possible when you're pitching it to me. Um, and I can sort of get an initial sense of whether or not I feel that's something for us. Um, Often in these situations, I will be honest, like they they can be a little early for me, you know what I mean? So if you come and say, I've just got this really great idea. So what I can give you feedback a lot of the time. And if something's really good, maybe I want to take it on, but sort of usually it's like, here's my advice for you as an Australian producer in how you could develop it with an eye to sort of international success, but equally what you'll need to do to kind of like hone it for your local market as well. No, I'm giving pointers at an early stage rather than saying, yeah, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, which I can do more if you've delivered a script and a Bible, there's an interest from a broadcaster and it's slightly more real. Um, so yeah, I think be in those short introductory meetings, really clear, really succinct. If you want to leave me anything, a one pager will be fine. And if there's, sort of one or two pages, it doesn't have to be scientifically exact. But and from there, we can just take it from there.
Mhm.
Sort of,
Or do they
I
have
don't
a
think I
pilot
need more than that.
ready? Like maybe if you're interested, they
If
have a
they've got
pilot ready to go. Yeah.
if
I guess
they've got a pilot ready to go,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great. But again, if something's super early, it
Mm,
might be more important for them to focus on the Australian buyer. And so focus on your local broadcasters and focus on finding the sort of buy-in there
mm.
at that early stage and come to me next after that, rather than sort of jumping on me first. But it's sort of, that's why it's just good to hear the sort of top level sort of
Yeah.
idea first as something that's super early. But if you've got a script, it's great. It's much better to understand something by reading a script.
Mm. And are there any particular Australian buyers that you've worked with, or that you suggest?
Well, we work with pretty much everybody. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got projects for Stan,
Yeah.
ABC, Paramount Plus, and we've got projects for Nine in the catalogue as well. Foxtel, obviously. So really
All of them.
everybody, and I
Yeah.
think they're all doing
Yeah.
quality projects. You know what I mean? Sort of. Um, I think, as I say, I think um, episode count is good for us. So like 6 to 8 episodes is kind of the ideal format, I would say, coming out of Australia
Mm.
or anywhere. Like we're seeing a lot of four-parters coming out of the UK at the moment, and that's slightly more tricky for the international market. Not impossible, but I just think from a length point of view, it's better to have 6 to 8.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, from the broadcaster point of view, there's some very good things. It's just about, I think the challenge just comes from financing because it's sort of like everywhere, the budgets are particularly they're not coming down. So it's the challenge of how do you finance these things
Mm.
all together.
That's true. And it brings me to another question here from Leanne. Would there be any interested in scripted single episode or telemovie?
Um, we used to do TV movies. I did a stand film called Christmas on the Farm a couple of years ago, produced by Hoodlum, which was really jolly and nice. And that was a Christmas movie. So maybe like a Christmas movie if it had like casting and like was a good opportunity. It's not a priority. We've kind of moved
Oh.
away. We used to do a lot of sort of TV movies, like US TV movies,
Mm.
and we've kind of that market's kind of saturated itself a little bit. So we've kind of moved out of that. So never say never, not particularly a priority for us.
Is there anything that you don't want?
Um, it's difficult to say this because I know I sort of said, well, I don't really want half-hour comedy, and then I think, well, you just distributed up right. That was a half-hour comedy, so it's sort of, I don't particularly want comedy in the traditional sense of like sort of sitcom.
Mhm.
They're harder for us. Um, but it doesn't mean that something fantastic can't come up when we'd be interested. This is always the contradiction.
Mm.
Um, things that are too local, that feel too local is not, is
Sure.
particularly. Um, I have to be just quite, science fiction and period drama can be challenging, as you've probably heard from lots of people, but doesn't mean I don't want them. It's just we've got to kind of just be very careful over
Yeah.
what they are and how they're approached and everything. So I would think if the safest thing is soap opera. Like I don't like daily soap opera and
Sorry, that was a
like
no.
situate.
No on a soap.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really. Yeah, I don't think I'd go for a soap.
Mm.
Um, and comedy, like situation, like traditional comedy. I'm probably not really looking for that at the moment.
Okay, fair. Another question here. A lot of production companies have mentioned their preference for TV series, producing TV. Do you think there is a hesitation in producing feature films at the moment for production companies?
Um, I don't know actually. My sense is maybe not. I don't know. It's sort of like I think it's got quite hard to make TV series, and so I think a lot of projects that I think we found over the streaming boom, this peak TV boom, that a lot of TV series were actually felt like stretched out feature films and were kind of made in like 4 part, 6 part, 8 part sort of features that was so I'm finding a lot of TV projects some producers I talk to like migrate back to being feature films. And I'm not saying it's easy to fund a feature film. I think it's still hard to get a feature film off the ground.
Mm.
But I think a lot of producers I'm talking to are kind of flipping between the two at the moment. I think, well, we might do it as a feature or we might do it as a TV series. And there clearly are some ideas that are so much better suited to being a feature film or a
Yeah.
single. Um, and I think that's where this market is informing a lot is that, you know, if you're going to do a limited series, a serial, you just got to make sure it's got enough in it to justify being all the episodes you're saying it's going to be, the 8 episodes. Just don't try and stretch it out, sort of because some things are a great idea, but you're like, but that's a 2 hour, that really needs to be a 2 hour. You can tell all of that in 2 hours. You don't need a whole series to tell that story. Um, but
Would
yeah, I'm seeing quite a flip between two.
Okay, great. So in terms of Screen Forever, you're not looking for a feature film for that.
No, I don't. We have a motion picture group that handle all our
Yeah.
feature films. So I'm purely in television. The nearest I get to a single is a TV movie that was made, and I class a TV movie maybe something that is made for a streamer, a film like direct to streaming film.
Mm.
But I'm not in the feature world, so I probably won't be. Don't bombard me with lots of features because it's probably not
Okay.
for me.
No worries. So we're getting towards the end here now. So any final tips for producers on best approach or strategy when bringing their project to you at Screen Forever?
Yeah, as I say, I'm really happy to meet you all and sort of hear about your projects. Um, I I say a lot of the time the ideas can be quite early, so I think you have to be thinking about that I can't I don't see myself as being the first in line of
Sure.
kind of initiation. So I
Mm.
think you have to think carefully about how are you approaching it in your local market. So how are your relationships with the broadcasters? And are you thinking also about co-venturing with another maybe more experienced producer who can maybe give you the extra push to get over the line locally? And I think a lot of, there's no problem in that if it means you get the project away. A good idea.
Mm.
The commissioners just want to have confidence in what they're getting. So I would say just a little bit of thought around what's your local strategy for getting the show away. Because, the idea is all very well and good, but obviously people are spending a lot of money to get these things made, so they want to be sure that they're going to get something delivered. Um, So that would be my thing. And then I can get, if I understand your approach in the market, I can sort of think, okay, clearly that's taken care of. So I can give you my honest feedback for the bit I'm sort of looking out for, which is the international part of the financing. Um, and we can just have a bit more of a serious conversation about it rather than sort of general.
Absolutely. It's one final question here from a delegate. What makes a feature film a streamer film rather than a box office film?
I mean, something that is going like premieres, like is commissioned by Stan or is commissioned by Netflix Australia or something, and it doesn't go into theaters. And it was primarily directed to premiere on the platform and
Like
then be
Christmas on the
distributed around the
Farm,
world.
like Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, got you. Okay, well, we're getting towards the end. So just to recap, you're after 6 to 8 parter returnable series, investigative crime, looking for that pure investigative world. Would that be correct? Did we hit it?
yeah, yeah, yes, and then everything else, just
And then
according to
everything else as
bit.
well. Just bring it
And then
all.
everything else as well. Yeah. Well, it's just like you never know. I mean, all the things
It's
that we're
true.
currently taking don't fit in that, and they come from everywhere. So, I have to say something on this thing, but I'm just, one of the things about doing this job is hearing all the different ideas and getting stimulated by them. So, yeah, looking forward to hearing all the different ideas too.
Okay, so we're literally just throwing all of that out the window and we're just gonna like look at everything. Okay,
Pretty
fantastic.
much.
That's great.
But I don't want to kill people. I don't want to kill people's creativity because if somebody
Yeah,
really
that's
believes, like, if I said that and then I'd never have done the newsreader, no, I just want crime,
fantastic.
go away, and then you miss out on opportunity, don't you?
Oh, we love that. And that's why we're really happy to have you coming to Screen Forever. I believe it's your first time ever coming to Screen Forever. So we're happy
Yeah, I know.
you.
First time on the Gold Coast. I've been to Brisbane, never been to the Gold Coast, and first time at Screen Forever, which will be really, really cool. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone. This is the last in our series of market webinars. Just a reminder that project submissions for Ready Steady Pitch are open until Monday, the 3rd of March. Go to screenforever.org.au and hit Spark Connect. Thank you so much, Noel, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank
See
you
you.
very much. Bye bye.
Bye.